We quantify everything, don't we? Like, we rank pizza toppings, and we track sports scores, and
Well, maybe
even things
yeah.
like happiness, right?
Yeah.
But how do we know if those measurements are, like, actually meaningful?
That's a great question, and it's
Yeah.
way more important than you might think.
Okay.
We're diving into Chapter 2 of Salking today,
Okay.
and it focuses on something called levels of measurement.
Got it.
It might sound a little technical,
Okay.
but trust me, this stuff is relevant to how you understand the world.
Okay. I'm intrigued. So what's the, like, big takeaway here? What will I, like, be able to do after this deep dive that I couldn't do before?
You'll be able to decode the information you encounter every day.
Okay.
You'll understand why some measurements are more powerful than others and how to spot misleading claims based on how information is presented.
All right. Sign me up.
All right.
But before we go full-on data detective, let's define some terms. What exactly is a variable, and what do we mean by measurement?
Sure, those are the building blocks.
Yeah.
A variable is simply anything that can change or have different values, like your height, your favorite color, the temperature outside.
Right.
Those are all variables.
Okay, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
So is measurement just about, like, assigning labels to those variables?
exactly.
Okay.
We assign labels to describe the different values a variable can take.
Yeah.
And those labels can be numbers or categories.
Okay.
So think about your age. That's a variable measured with a number, right?
Right.
But
Yep.
what about your mood? That might be measured with categories like happy, sad, or stressed.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
So the way we measure something kind of depends on the type of variable we're dealing with.
Right. And that's where these levels of measurement come in.
Got it.
There are 4 basic levels,
Yeah.
each with a different level of precision and meaning.
Okay.
Think of it like building a house.
Ooh, I love analogies. lay this house metaphor on me.
All right, imagine the nominal level as the foundation of our house.
Okay.
This is the most basic level.
Okay.
You're simply naming categories, putting things into groups.
Hmm.
It's like sorting your laundry into whites and colors,
Yeah.
man. You're
Right.
recognizing a difference, but that's about it.
Okay, so if I conduct a survey and I ask people if they prefer cats or dogs,
Right.
that's nominal data.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're not saying one pet is better than the other, just acknowledging their different categories.
Right.
Yeah,
But wouldn't that kind of limit what you can conclude from the data?
it does.
Yeah.
Think about a study that simply classifies people as stressed or not stressed.
Right.
It tells us nothing about how much stress people are experiencing or what types of stress they face.
Right.
Nominal data is just the starting point, the bare minimum.
Okay, so nominal is like the foundation of our measurement house.
Yeah.
What's the next level up?
We start building the walls with the ordinal level.
Okay.
Now, we're not just naming categories.
All
We're
right.
adding order or rank.
So instead of just piles of laundry,
Yeah.
we're organizing clothes in our closet from most least favorite.
Exactly.
Right.
You know which clothes you prefer, but we don't know how much more you like one outfit compared to another.
That makes sense. Could you give me a real-world example?
Think about a race
Okay.
where you only know the finishing order,
Okay.
you know who came in first, second, and third, but you don't know the time difference between them.
Hmm.
Were they neck and neck, or was it a blowout?
Right.
Ordinal data gives us ranking,
Yeah.
but not the magnitude of the difference.
Okay, so nominal is naming, ordinal is ranking.
Right.
What comes next in our measurement house construction?
Things get more exciting with the interval level,
Oh,
where
so-
we add rooms and features to our house.
Okay.
Now we have equal intervals between values. This means the difference between scores actually has meaning.
Okay, break that down for me. What do you mean by equal intervals?
Think of a thermometer.
Yeah.
The difference between 20 degrees and 30 degrees is the same as the difference between 50 degrees and 60 degrees.
Right.
Each degree represents the same amount of heat.
So with interval data, we're not just saying one thing is bigger or better than another.
Right.
We can quantify how much bigger or better it is.
You got it.
Okay.
Let's say we're measuring reading comprehension.
Okay.
We're not just ranking students.
Yeah.
We can actually say that one student scored 10 points higher than another on a standardized test.
Now it's making sense. So interval data is a big step up.
Yes.
Because we can actually start to make more precise comparisons.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
because we have equal intervals, we can use more powerful statistical methods to analyze the data
Okay.
and draw more reliable conclusions.
But hold on. Even with these precise intervals,
Yeah.
are there things we need to be careful about?
Great question.
Yeah.
Just because we have numbers doesn't mean we can overgeneralize.
Right.
For example, if someone scores 80% on a history test,
Right.
it doesn't mean they know exactly 80% of all historical facts.
Right.
It just means they performed well on that specific test.
Right. That's a good reminder.
Yeah.
We can't take the numbers at face value
No.
without considering the context.
Exactly.
Okay, we've built the foundation, walls, and rooms of our measurement house.
Right.
What's the final level that completes this structure?
The ratio level is like adding all the furniture and finishing touches.
Ooh, this sounds fancy. Give me an example.
All right, think about measuring height.
Okay.
You can be 0 inches tall, and it means there's literally no height,
Right.
before you were born.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be hard to find examples like that in social sciences?
You're right. It's rare to have a true 0 point for things like intelligence or happiness.
Right.
But in physical sciences, it's more common.
Okay.
Think about measuring temperature in Kelvin. Okay. There's an absolute 0 where there's no heat whatsoever.
So with ratio data, we can make comparisons like twice as much.
Exactly.
Because we have that absolute 0 point as a reference.
Exactly.
Okay.
We can say that someone who weighs 200 pounds is twice as heavy as someone who weighs 100 pounds.
Right.
Because weight has a true 0 point.
Okay, I'm starting to see the power of ratio data,
Yeah.
but it sounds like it's not always possible or even necessary to reach this level of measurement.
Exactly.
Right.
Sometimes a lower level of measurement is sufficient depending on what you're trying to understand.
This has been a whirlwind tour of measurement levels, from the basic foundation of nominal to the fully furnished house of ratio data.
It has.
But before we get lost in all these levels,
Yeah.
can you remind me why we're even talking about this? What's the big picture takeaway here?
The key takeaway is that the level of measurement determines how much information we have
Okay.
and how we can analyze and interpret data. Choosing the right level of measurement is like choosing the right tool for the job.
Right.
And understanding these levels helps us be more critical thinkers when encountering data in our daily lives.
All right, so now that I understand these levels, what can I actually do with this knowledge? How will this change the way I see the world?
That's a great question, and that's exactly what we're going to explore in the next part of our deep dive.
All right.
Get ready to put on your measurement detective hat.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. All right.
All right, my measurement detective hat is firmly in place.
Great.
I'm ready to put this knowledge into action.
Okay.
You mentioned that understanding these levels can help us decode information and be more critical thinkers.
Yeah.
But how does it actually play out in real life?
Well, think about the last time you read a news headline about a new scientific study. Did you take the findings at face value, or did you stop to think about how the researchers measured what they were studying?
Honestly, probably not. I usually just skim the headlines, but now I'm thinking,
Right.
maybe I should be paying closer attention.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of how this could make a difference?
Sure. Let's say you see a headline claiming, "New study shows chocolate improves memory."
Okay.
Sounds pretty tempting, right?
Yeah.
But before you stock up on chocolate bars,
Yeah.
you need to ask yourself, how did they measure memory?
Yeah, I guess there are a lot of ways to do that.
Right.
What kind of measurement red flags should I be looking for?
Think back to our levels of measurement.
Okay.
If the researchers simply asked people, do you feel like your memory has improved since you started eating chocolate?
Okay.
That's nominal data. It's
Right.
just a yes or no answer based on personal perception.
Yeah.
Not very reliable.
Right. So it wouldn't be very scientific to draw big conclusions based on that?
No.
What if they gave people a memory test?
That's a good step up. But even then, we need more details.
Okay.
Was it a standardized test with established scoring, offering equal intervals between scores?
Okay.
Or was it a more informal assessment?
Right.
The type of test used and how it was scored significantly impacts the validity of the findings.
Okay, so the level of measurement used in a study can really influence how we should interpret the findings?
Exactly. And this applies not just to scientific studies,
Yeah.
but to all kinds of information we encounter.
Right.
Think about marketing claims. 9 out of 10 dentists recommend this toothpaste.
Right.
That sounds impressive,
Yeah.
but it's nominal data. We don't know how the dentists were chosen,
Yeah.
what questions they were asked,
Yeah.
or what the alternatives were.
Wow, so these levels of measurement are like a secret decoder ring for understanding the world around us.
They are.
I'm starting to see things in a whole new light.
Good.
So as we navigate this sea of information,
Yeah.
what's the key thing to remember?
The higher the level of measurement, the more information we have.
Okay.
And the more confidence we can have in the findings. But it's also important to remember that not everything needs to be measured at the ratio level.
Okay.
Sometimes a lower level of measurement is perfectly adequate for the research question being asked.
So it's about using the right level of measurement for the job, like choosing the right tool from a toolbox.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where things can get a bit tricky.
Okay.
Sometimes researchers might make choices about how to analyze data that spark debate amongst statisticians.
Oh.
For example, treating ordinal data as if it were interval data
Yeah.
is a common practice.
Okay.
It can lead to misleading conclusions if not done carefully.
Why would researchers do that? Is it just cutting corners?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Sometimes it's a matter of practicality.
Oh.
Or they might argue that the way they've treated the data is justified in their specific context.
Okay.
It's important to be aware of these choices and how they might affect the interpretation of the results.
Okay, so even if a study uses seemingly impressive statistics, I should be cautious about drawing conclusions without understanding how the data was measured and analyzed.
Precisely. Critical thinking is key.
Yeah.
And that means understanding these different levels of measurement
Right.
and how they impact what we can legitimately learn from data.
This is incredibly helpful.
Good.
I'm starting to feel like I can be a more informed and discerning consumer of information.
That's great.
But before my brain explodes with all these details,
Yeah.
can you give me a concrete example
Absolutely.
of how these levels play out in real research?
Let's look at a study that explores factors influencing job satisfaction.
Okay, let's dive into that job satisfaction study.
Okay.
How would different levels of measurement kind of come into play there?
So imagine the researchers want to know if there's a relationship between salary and job satisfaction.
Okay.
They could start by asking people, are you satisfied with your job?
Right.
Yes or no?
That sounds like our good old nominal level again, just
It is.
categorizing people. What else could they do?
They could have people rank their level of job satisfaction from very dissatisfied to very satisfied, which would be ordinal data.
All right, so now we have like an order,
Right.
but we still don't know how much more satisfied one person is compared to another.
Right.
Yeah.
To get more precise information,
Okay.
they might use a standardized job satisfaction scale
Yeah.
that has been carefully designed with equal intervals between points.
Okay.
This would give us interval-level data
Right.
and allow for more in-depth statistical analysis.
I see. So they could start to look for correlations between specific salary ranges
Yeah.
and scores on the job satisfaction scale.
Exactly. And they
Yeah.
could compare different groups of employees
Right.
based on factors like job title, years of experience,
Uh-huh.
or even things like commute time.
Okay.
The higher the level of measurement, the more possibilities open up for analysis.
This is making me think about all the surveys I've taken in the past, like those customer satisfaction surveys you get after a purchase.
Yeah.
I'm guessing most of those rely on pretty basic levels of measurement.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
Many surveys use a combination of nominal and ordinal data because it's easy to collect and analyze.
Right.
But it's important to remember that those simple rankings might not tell the whole story.
So as a consumer of information, how can I, be more aware of these measurement levels in everyday life?
Yeah.
It feels like it's so easy to get overwhelmed by, all the data out there.
The key is to start asking questions.
Okay.
When you see a statistic or a research finding,
Yeah.
don't just accept it blindly.
Right.
Ask yourself, what was measured and how was it measured?
Mm.
Does the conclusion match the level of data they have?
That's great advice. It's about being,
Yeah.
curious and skeptical, not just taking things at face value.
Precisely. And the more you practice this, the more you'll start to see the world through a measurement lens.
Oh.
You'll be able to spot misleading claims,
Right.
identify weaknesses and arguments,
Yeah.
and be a more informed citizen overall.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener. I'm already noticing these levels of measurement everywhere I look.
That's fantastic.
It's like you've given me a new set of glasses for seeing the world.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And understanding how information is gathered and presented
Right.
gives you the power to think critically and make more informed decisions.
I'm ready to embrace my inner data detective.
Great.
Thanks for taking us on this fascinating journey through the world of measurement.
It's been my pleasure.
Yeah.
And remember, keep asking questions and keep exploring.
Okay.
There's always more to learn.
And that's a wrap on another deep dive. We'll see you next time.